Hi, listeners. This is Sarah and Mary Beth. We are excited to announce our 50th episode of Trustworthy Podcast on June 23rd.
And to celebrate, we are doing a giveaway. That's right. You, our listeners, can enter to win a custom Trustworthy Tervis tumbler. All you have to do is shoot us an email to listen@trustworthypodcast.com.
Starting in May, we will be choosing one lucky winner each week leading up to our 50th episode on June 23rd.
So if you live in the lower 48 United States or have an APO address, shoot us an email, listen@trustworthypodcast.com.
Talk to you later. This is Trustworthy. Hi, I'm Sarah.
And I'm Mary Beth. Join us for conversations in community.
Established by a trustworthy God. Well, hello there, Dawn Grieco.
Hi.
She's here.
She's here. Yes. And good morning, Mary Beth.
Good morning.
And good morning to you, listeners, wherever, actually, I should say, wherever, whenever you might be listening to us. We are so grateful to have our friend Dawn Grieco with us this morning. And she is going to be sharing some really interesting stuff with us, how God is using her in a place that might be a little bit unexpected. But before we get into that, let's talk about how we know Dawn.
Who is this Dawn Grieco?
Who is this Dawn Grieco we speak of? So it will come as a shock to no one that I met her at Willowdale Chapel.
Such a deep well of guests there.
Certainly are. And actually, there's a little bit of a story about that, isn't there, Dawn?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely, because I knew your husband before I knew you.
You knew my husband before I knew my husband.
Yes, in fact. Prayed for you without knowing your name. Yeah, we did. We served in children's ministry together.
Yeah, that's amazing. I don't know if I ever knew that you prayed for me before you knew my name.
I prayed for someone like you. I didn't know your name, meaning praying for a wife for Joe was definitely something that we prayed for him for a while.
That's amazing. Oh, I love that story. My goodness. Okay. We haven't even started and I'm already emotional.
So how many years ago was that you first met, the two of you, Dawn and Sarah?
It would be a little over 9 years ago. Yeah.
Oh, good that you know, because I don't care. It's all a blur sometimes.
It's okay, because I moved here almost 9 years ago. We bought the house actually 9 years ago. And so I had started attending Willowdale off and on before I moved. So I would have met you in that time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
good.
Definitely good. Yeah. And Mary Beth, you met Dawn probably
through Moms in Prayer.
Yeah. Only a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, because Dawn's not at Willowdale anymore. She's at a different church now. So I didn't have the pleasure of meeting you there. But the things I love about Dawn are you have this like infectious energy. And every time I feel like we meet for prayer, we talk about what's going on with our kids, I always leave a conversation with you with like, oh, things are going to be okay. Like there's a hope. There's a future. We're in it.
Yeah.
So I've really appreciated all that.
Yes.
Yeah. You're definitely this amazing force of hope and goodness in the world that I know is powered by a full surrender to God. I mean, his work in your life. But anyway, okay. Like we get ahead of ourselves. Dawn, you are involved in prison ministry.
Yes, I am.
And that I don't even really know how to explain or where to start. So I think I'm going to let you tell us a little bit about your background and kind of how you found yourself in this ministry. And yeah, feel free to introduce yourself to the listeners, whatever you'd like to say.
Right before we started recording, we were saying you don't just wake up one day and find yourself involved in prison ministry. There's got to be a backstory there.
Yes. How did it come that I called the prison my people? Yeah, that was definitely a journey. I would say that the story probably begins in my own walk with the Lord and coming upon the ministry of Celebrate Recovery. And I know that you all have had other folks on your podcast, so the listeners might know a little bit about Celebrate Recovery, but basically it's a Christian 12-step program. And I guess I've been a part of that for the last 15 years. And I've met different people along the way, and a family and a small group of mine in that season had an adopted son, and he got into some trouble and found himself at Chester County Prison. And that was around 2016. And I live only a few miles from Chester County Prison, in fact. And I remember taking a really long prayer walk around the perimeter of the prison grounds. And that day, my heart was broken and softened for the troubles that plagued the folks who were inside of that place. And the irony wasn't lost on me that this was only a few miles from my comfortable middle-class suburban home that I had once asked God, well, do you want me to leave? Because I got to this house with bad motives. Do you want me to leave this area? Is there somewhere else you want me to go? And clear as day, not with audible words, but he was like, no, this neighborhood is your mission field. And I was like, oh, no, I don't. I don't know what you mean. I don't want to go tell my neighbors about Jesus. And that kind of came full circle when I realized I was 3 miles from the prison, and that's what he meant by my neighborhood.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, I couldn't tell you a word I prayed that day. I can just remember this desperate feeling of hopelessness for my friend's son. And she would have struggles with him. She had not walked a journey with much of a dysfunctional home life or an upbringing. Like, her life was up and to the right for the most part, and she had always known the Lord. And I had this connection with her son. Like, I could go toe to toe with him. I understood how he thought. The way I like to say it is, I'm only a little bit removed from all those lies that used to entangle me. And so when someone else is trapped in thought life that's like toxic, like, I get that. I know that the first natural thought, if someone doesn't answer a phone, is they're avoiding your phone call, not they were doing the laundry and didn't hear it. And so she really would struggle with connecting with him in that season, and she'd miss phone calls, and it would break down trust. And I went, well, let me go talk to him. So he put me on the visitor log, and I started visiting him every Tuesday. And I just would talk to him, and I felt like I understood him and he understood me. And it was impactful little visits, and things grew from there. My friend Heidi had the vision of what God was calling me to well before I did. Like, I was like, nope. What are you talking about, prison ministry? I was like, I'm supposed to teach this Bible study. That's what God told me to do. And having had my own past that has, some struggles, I mean, God has broken chains of abuse, abortion, suicide, depression, anxiety, estrangement, addiction, assault, like, you name it, all the unmentionables, like, those have touched my life. And I was really clear on needing to do a Bible study that was helping women who have experienced abuse and abortion. And she was like, Dawn, I don't know, but I think maybe, just maybe, the women inside could benefit from that Bible study. And that was a light bulb moment for me, because I had never once thought by chance that is where, and that those are some of the struggles that the women inside would have. And it was mind-blowing to me that I was in that much denial to realizing that would be a effective place to minister to some of the hurts and habits and hangups that the Lord had already delivered me from and is continuing to deliver me from.
Well, what you're saying is you weren't seeking this out necessarily.
Not at all. And she would say I Jonah'd that calling for a while. And I didn't even know I was doing it, which makes it even funnier. But
in seeking the Lord, that's where he led you.
Oh, and it was clear. Let me tell you, it was clear because I did a little bit of, now this is going to be a little Bible story throw, but like Gideon and the fleece, I did some fleeces. I was like, you're going to have to make it really clear, Lord, if you want me to do this. And the next day an email came in about, it was June 1st, and I would get an annual email, and it was clear as day, it might have been May 1st and June 1st, 2 newsletters in a row on the first of the month. The first time was about prison ministry and church plants. And I was in a church plant in that season. And the next time was prison ministry and maybe post-abortive Bible studies. And it was clear as day to me. I had said, make it clear. And he made it so clear. Within 24 hours, there was an email in my inbox telling me about this Bible study going into a prison from the Healing Hearts International's newsletters. And I was like, okay, I hear you.
Wow.
I hear you. Just Mercy had come out and someone had handed me that book to read. There were so many things that were all just congealing that like I needed to be very clearly told, because if it's not my idea, like I get scared of ideas that aren't my own. And that's why I knew it was from God, because I was kind of scared of that idea. And I'm never scared of my own ideas. And so, with a lot of encouragement from Heidi, we kept pursuing going in the prison, met with the chaplain, and started teaching Celebrate Recovery inside, actually.
Wow. Hey, Mary Beth.
Mm-hmm.
In 5 seconds, name your top 3 church traditions.
Ooh, candlelight Christmas Eve service, vacation Bible school when I was a child, and number 3 would be any baptism service.
Those are great answers. Listeners, join us next time for our discussion on holding on to human traditions. Sometimes they're good. Sometimes they keep us from knowing the Lord.
Check it out on June 9th.
It strikes me that you were scared.
Oh, yeah.
And I want you to hear that, listeners, that sometimes we do get scared, and God calls us to things that can be very scary. I remember even in the beginning of this podcast, well, even to this day, I'm still scared, because what if I have to say things that aren't comfortable? What if I have to tell people that but I trust God, right? And so you trusted God, and not only did he make it so abundantly clear that this is what you're supposed to do, but he has paved the way for you and made this something that's become a joy for you and a blessing.
100%. I remember standing in line, getting ready to check in or whatever it was, for probably one of my first times visiting my friend's son. And I just looked and went and just sat there praying, going, Lord, if walking into this darkness is going to hinder my ability to be the best wife and mother, and make me relapse or go backwards at all in my own recovery, then close the door. Close the door, because I can't jeopardize how far you've brought me by something that might not be of you or is me. Like, I didn't want any codependent motives or any ill-aligned, like I'm going to go be some hero complex getting in the way of what I was supposed to do and not supposed to do. And I would come home every Tuesday, and when I would do high-low with my kids at the dinner table, clear as day, it was always the best part of my day was the days I went to the prison. And then they would blow my kids' minds, because they're like, your best part was going to the prison? Mom, I don't tell anyone that you go to the prison. Is that okay? I'd be like, that is quite okay.
There might be some mixed messages going on. My mom goes to prison once a week. Yeah.
Yes. But it was the best part of my day. And I leave more filled than depleted every time. Every time.
And I think that's further confirmation that this is where God has you, and it's what you're supposed to be doing. I also just want to go back to a point you made. You said, I prayed that God would tell me right away if this is going to jeopardize my recovery, the work that he's doing in my life, or my first calling as a wife and a mother.
100%.
And boy, I think we've all seen people that have had a call, but at the expense of their family. And I don't think our good Father wants that. I'm not here to condemn or pass judgment at all. I just think that if we are being called to something, we need to be, okay, preaching to myself right here now. Am I giving my family, my role as a mother and a wife, the same attention that I give my other things that I'm called to?
Yeah.
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 Wow.
And I think in putting that into perspective, right, we're in 2026. The visits I would do with first going to the prison to visit my friend's son, that was in 2016. So that was 10 years ago this began. And it was slow and it was baby steps. And I have 3 children and my second one is headed off to college. And so I just see the Lord having been prepared me for what it would look like here at the end of, well, motherhood, for in the nest every day grinding. It's been a 10-year step-by-step process of getting more involved, balancing what it looked like to only do an hour or 2 volunteering a week to now stepping into a little bit more time commitment. But the bandwidth is there, whereas I will only have one kiddo, one high school kiddo who will be able to drive himself places come the fall.
Wow, that's going to be a whole new world.
Can you talk a little bit more about what it really does look like? People hear this concept of doing prison ministry and they might have a hard time visualizing what that is. So you mentioned a few Bible studies, you mentioned Celebrate Recovery. Can you kind of walk us through what is it actually? What are you actually doing?
Yeah.
It's not Johnny Cash singing songs or no. Okay.
No,
All right.
it's not even the Instagram reels you'll see of where famous people are going and singing songs or preaching sermons. Like, this Chester County Prison is actually a local jail. It may use the word prison in its name, but it operates like a local jail, which is a lot more a churn is the best word I can say, like in and out. Like, you're there for short sentences. You're not there because you got multiple years. Usually no one is there for sentences over 23 months. So that like keeps it to 2 years and under. And so there's a lot of short-term stays. So the way you approach ministry in a jail is quite different than the way you would in a federal prison where people have life sentences, for example.
Yeah.
And so what we do is I am part of a prison ministry team called New Mornings. And I had independently brought in Celebrate Recovery, but then was like, I really would like to be under a group that serves in a greater and a wider capacity, especially post-COVID. That was a shift we made. Like, I don't need to be flying solo. Anyway, inside it looks like many different ways. We can have one-on-ones where we meet one-on-one and sit across a table and just chat with a woman, hear her story, encourage her. That can take on a lot of different forms. Maybe we go over a Bible passage together, or we're just there as a listening ear. So one-on-ones is a component. Another component is small groups, like we do Discovery Bible groups, which are, we'll just take a little passage and we will meet with a few women, usually in the Work Release Center, which is a place they get released to in a staged approach towards reentry. And that usually only has less than 10 people there, and a subset of them will come down for that program. So they volunteer and they choose to come to programs when we come. And then my specialty, or the area I prefer to serve in, is our large group. So this is more like a chapel service. And this is large group teaching, where I am doing most of the teaching. It'll be interactive at points where we'll engage the women that come down. And that's anywhere from like 8 to 10 to 25 women at one time in the large chapel. So basically, when we think of women and volunteers, or women or men that come and want to volunteer and do prison ministry, where does your gifting and your comfort zone align with the calling? Because not everyone's called to prison ministry. So the first thing that we look for in a volunteer is like, oh, you've been called to this. Like, this is not just, you're not coming because your son went to prison and you want to see him, but like, you have a heart that wants to pour into the women and men behind bars. Well, do you like large group? Do you like small group? Are you a one-on-one person? Because there's a place for anyone's gifting and how they like to do ministry within our whole prison ministry team. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. And I think it sounds like over time, it's really developed into something that's more people are able to participate in.
Correct. Because the last thing you want to do is be intimidated talking in front of a group of 25 women in the chapel if that's not part of your, like, if teaching isn't a gift of yours. But if you are an amazing listener and have gifts of mercy and compassion, sitting in on a one-on-one is exactly where your sweet spot would be in meeting a woman where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
And we also do reentry, right? So there's these relationships get formed, and then the ability to walk with a woman once they are released becomes another part of the journey, where friendship or rides or support and encouragement or connecting to resources for employment or other areas is also something that we try to do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'll speak very specifically about ministering to women because that's where I am. But the Celebrate Recovery program, we have a men's team and a women's team. And so the men are doing the same things. I just always speak from the women's perspective because that's what I do.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Is the age at Chester County, is it just 18 and up? Or do you have younger?
Very good question,
Yeah.
Mary Beth. So if you're familiar with Chester County Prison, which is in Westchester proper at mailing address and in the Pocopson Township area, they have actually 3 buildings on site at the complex. One is the Work Release Center that you just heard me mention. The other is the main prison, the large, long established. And then a third building on that complex is actually the youth detention center.
Okay.
So we do not currently go into the youth detention center. There are other programs and other supports, but our group in particular does not. And that would house anyone under 18.
Yeah, my only familiarity with prison ministry, my church growing up did a lot with our YDC center,
Yes.
my hometown. And this leads me to my next question, which was, where I grew up, the prison system and the county welcomed wholeheartedly anyone into the prison that wanted to minister, mentor, serve. Has that been your experience, or do they want more people to come in and help in this capacity, or what's that reception been like?
So I would say very receptive to supports. Now, my work is within a ministry that falls under the chaplaincy, right? So a religious volunteer by title. They're always taking applications for people that want to serve. Placing and finding the fit is another thing.
Yeah.
I would say Chester County in particular is discerning in allowing ex-offenders to come back in. Like, there's a lot of boundaries over if you have someone that's currently in the prison and you're related to them, you're probably not going to get approved.
Yeah.
Like if my kid went to jail and I was like, I want to do prison ministry, there would be a conflict of interest. So they sort through that. So that's definitely from a safety and a motive perspective, probably always evaluated. And, they run background checks, I think, on everyone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not part of the process of what happens behind the scenes, but as far as volunteers, a heart to serve these women and men, and no other real restrictions if there's nothing obvious.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned this a minute ago, and we do want to get some more information on this. You mentioned reentry and helping the women that you're serving, after they are released, reentering society, community, finding work, all of these things. Give us some context for that. What does this look like? How does reentry work for them? What's the success rate? Do you have any information you can share on that?
Localized data, I don't really have. What I can say is currently we have about 700 people at Chester County Prison. 25% of them, or about 175, are women. And what I can say is that the reentry paths are quite different when you consider women as opposed to men. There was a survey a lot of research done back in 2003, which feels like ancient now, but Blue Moen and Covington released research on practices and guiding what considerations and principles needed to be factored for women offenders and how to meet them. They had different pathways into the system of incarceration. They had different program needs. They had different outcomes. And a lot of that research just basically highlighted the need for gender responsive programming and gender responsive approaches to the criminal justice system and how it works. I could talk forever about the ways in which women became increasingly included in the offender population, like in the numbers. Like, for example, there was a 22% increase between 2011 and 2021 in women held in local jails. Like just a large increase.
That's a huge increase.
And they support data on minority women having a higher rate of imprisonment. And the unfortunate piece that speaks to the reentry that you were speaking about, Mary Beth, is like, this is not local data on Chester County, but 58% of the women that are in prison and 80% of the women in jail have minor children. Like 2 or more kids at home while they are gone. And that has caused just a huge ripple effect in the impact to family, which is what makes the call to prison ministry a larger net than what seems to be. Like I have longed to have a day where I could sit in front of, let's say, Willowdale Chapel or somewhere, and just in the front of the room, ask everyone if they know someone who has been or is been impacted by incarceration to stand up. You would be surprised by the number of people that would stand up because people don't talk about it. And that's probably where my work in Celebrate Recovery and talking about like the unmentionables and the things that I had experienced with that people don't talk about. People don't talk about someone they know being in prison. Like there's a lot of shame and stigma around that, especially in Chester County, one of the wealthiest counties in the state. People don't talk about prison that much.
Well, I have a question. Is there reasons or data given for that 22% increase in female incarcerations over that 10-year period? Is there data on what types of crimes these are? Like why, like what caused that increase?
I don't have data, but I can say anecdotally, the offensive and the charges related to drug use and alcohol use have captured tons more women. If you're looking at women, you can, like, researchers have documented differences in the family histories. There is dysfunction, there's substance abuse, co-occurring disorders, there's victimization. Like that skyrockets your correlation to having criminal justice involvement. And if you add in a history of sexual abuse or trauma, like they are overrepresented.
Right.
And that's something where like, so one statistic that's common is like in any room that you could sit in, 1 in 4 women have experienced sexual abuse and 1 in 6 men. In any room, in any time, that is usually a statistical fact. It's probably triple or quadruple that if I'm sitting. And I did this once in the prison. I was like, look, I know the stats. And I said to them, right now we have 16 people in there. That means at least 4 of you. And I already just told you about my history. So I'm one of them. That means there's 3 more of you in this room that this has touched. And I know that's not true. I know the numbers are way higher in this room. And so I know that I have a captive audience of people that aren't speaking about things, that have walking with traumas. They're walking with complex griefs. They're walking with hurts that they don't talk about. And has that led to using drugs to cope? Has that led to alcoholism or DUIs? Yes. Right. So like the pathways are very different between men and women, and that impacts what it looks like to come alongside them in reentry.
Especially having children is stressful. Having children in a relationship that is already fraught with abuse or addiction is just a whole nother arena. And it just makes sense to me what you're saying, that this is the path to incarceration. And oh, by the way, there's 80% of them have children.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And the need for like all female group sessions, it's just, again, I don't have data, but impactful, so impactful for women that are experiencing reentry is to have that peer support. That's someone that's been there. Like one of my passions has been, how do we gather these women and men who have lived experience, who have succeeded in reentering, and how do we let them speak in to the women I'm meeting? Because I may not have the lived experience of incarceration. So I don't know what it's like to reentry. I've never, thank God, I've never had to wonder where I'm going to sleep at night. And so there is a piece of this that I can never enter fully into. I know I have equipping from a spiritual perspective, from a relational and an emotional perspective, but there are some aspects of physical needs and the scrambling for that I have not been able to hold with a reality in my life. And we need women and men to be able to pour back into those who are coming behind them with the same kind of hope that we're limited in Chester County. Our reentry is not strong. We're doing a lot to reevaluate it and to foster a coalition to focus all of the different government agencies and support networks and ministries and nonprofits to come together to make the reentry experience stronger for Chester County. But we're not there yet.
Yeah. Do you have recidivism rates?
I do not. I do not.
I guess
I could get them,
anecdotally, you may know.
Yeah, I was just wondering if maybe you could just walk us through a hypothetical of a woman who you would have encountered in the prison, who may have come to some of your meetings. Walk us through what that looks like when she leaves the doors of the prison.
Well, I will share this anecdotally because it happened Sunday night, so that's pretty recent here. I was at a Celebrate Recovery meeting and I met someone who, after I shared that we're relaunching Celebrate Recovery inside the prison, she was like, "Oh, I probably met you." Yeah, wow. I don't think for all the times that she had been there that she'd probably ever told anyone else that at that exact moment. She was like, "Oh, I was there in 2019. I was like, "Well, then you definitely saw me." She's like, "That's why I came to Celebrate Recovery." And for me, there was a full circle moment happening with that. And, it's happened a couple times where people are like, "Oh, yeah, I met you. But this is 5 and 6 years later."
Right. And you wouldn't necessarily remember them.
No. Because when I was in the height, we had like 25, 30 women in a class. Now, I would pride myself on trying to remember names and faces, and I'm pretty good, but I'm not that good, especially if they were only there for like a week or two, and I didn't see them for month over month.
How beautiful, though. How beautiful are the feet of those that share the gospel, and that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
I just, wow. This is just, listeners, I hope you're enjoying this conversation because, wow, this is amazing. And I'm just feeling kind of overwhelmed.
I would say the best way to address what you were saying, Mary Beth, in what it looks like to reenter is, I have often said that the most powerful resources we have are relationships. Relational poverty is so impactful. It's like innumerably impactful because if I don't have a job, you can do a job search online or you can do a job search and use your social network, right? Your social network will produce much more job prospecting than just an internet search.
Correct.
And so what I find is many times the folks that are leaving prison, their social network is their relational currency is weaker than the average person. They may have burned bridges in times of addiction or in taking themselves out of systems where there was toxic relationships. And so they do not abound with relationships in the same way that maybe your average citizens does. And that really impacts their ability to get transportation if they don't have a license, to find a radius of where they can live, affordable housing, where, is someone going to cut them a break and let them come home to live? Or do they have to go scramble and find something on their own? And I think the local church is the best place to rally so many people that can do their part to help reentry. Reentry won't be done with one nonprofit or one government agency. I truly believe that the best reentry ministry will be when a church comes alongside and responds to the heart cry of Chester County Prison. The need for people to be embraced and brought close in and cared for.
Well, that leads to this next question that we had for Christians who are listening to this, who this is all new information for them, or they've never even stopped to think about it, right? What do you want Christians to know about prison ministry and these women? What message do you want them to take away from this?
Well, that if I guess I would say if and when you find yourself here listening to this, if your heart starts racing, right? Or you start going, ooh, I want to go Google something that I heard, or you start going, I want to see statistics on women and reentry. If you're finding yourself thinking or feeling a certain way, there is a next step for you. And it can look as simple as going on to the New Morning's website, right? newmorningcares.org is a place where we have opportunities for donations. We have opportunities for prayer requests. We have opportunity to be a part of our Hope Wrapped initiative, which is Christmas, when we supply presents from the moms to their children if they're incarcerated over the Christmas holiday.
I love that one.
We have a whole Grace Bag initiative. So Grace Bags are these backpacks that come packed with what I would call all the essentials. Your shampoo, your conditioner, your body wash, the things you would spend $100 at CVS if you needed to go replace them all right now. Lip balm, toothbrush, razors, just all the things. We put a bag of all of those essentials together with like a journal, some pen and paper, maybe a coloring book, just, some fun things, fuzzy socks, because like who doesn't need a pair of fuzzy socks? And we meet the women when they get released. They email us, they reach out to our via phone, text, however, and then we say, yes, we'll meet you and we've got a Grace Bag for you. And so it's a great way to create a conduit for relationship outside. They always want the Grace Bag, and we just want to walk with them. And so we actually at Willowdale, I was part of a Willowdale Chapel Bible study on Wednesday mornings for this past 7-8 weeks, whatever session was. And one of the day of servings, we gathered and we put together 8 Grace Bags, the small group of women. We just sat there and ordered a bunch of supplies and then like assembly lined a bunch of backpacks to be able to be distributed. And so there's opportunities for churches or small groups or women's ministries to do a Grace Bag event, or to help do a drive to buy the Bibles that we put. We front end load and buy all the Bibles for the Hope Wrapped project in advance of Christmas. We have the Action Bibles for teens. We have the Jesus Storybook Bible for those under 10, and every child in every family gets one. People have bought us cases of those off of our Amazon wish list from the website, or you could just go, hey, I want to get on the newsletter. I want to hear a little bit more about what you're doing, and you can just sign up to receive the newsletter. Or you could be like, no, I want to go inside. And this might be the podcast that affirms your calling in your fleece like I had 10 years ago, where you're thinking maybe this is something you should do and you're not sure, but then you hear this and go, yeah, I think it's time that I submit an application and see what this thing looks like and maybe volunteer.
It sounds like there's a lot of really great opportunities there for anyone who would like to get more involved. And I know that prayer is always encouraged.
Yes.
Yeah. Dawn, when we were sort of talking about doing this podcast with you, we had this idea that sometimes there is a passage of scripture or specific words that God has placed on your heart or our hearts when he calls us to something. So you have a passage of scripture that you feel that has kind of been the framework for a lot of what you've done these last 10 years. And we'd love if you'd be willing to share that with us.
Yeah, I would. When I think back there's a number of passages that God echoed through my time, but each and every step of this journey for me, the Lord brings me back to one particular text, and that's Isaiah 61. I have incrementally underlined it and dated it every time he brought me back to show me the people that he would personally have me minister to out of the redemptive work he's done and continues to do in my own life. Isaiah 61 says, "The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me, because the Lord has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives and release from darkness for the prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn and provide for those who grieve, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. They will be called oaks of righteousness, a planting of the Lord for the display of his splendor. They will rebuild the ancient ruins and restore places long devastated. They will renew the ruined cities that have been devastated for generations. That's Isaiah 61, verses 1 through 4.
Thanks be to God.
Mm-hmm.
I can see, I can hear as I listen to the words of that scripture, how beautifully it dovetails with the hope and the redemption that you're able to supply to these women. It encompasses turning all of the destruction into something solid, a future, oaks of righteousness.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, just had a picture of these women that you've ministered to over the years, standing firm and tall, sending their roots down into the truth of the gospel and sheltering their children in the shade of the branches. It's just such a beautiful picture. Mm.
And that's just how God works, right? He takes the ones that the world would say, absolutely not. And that's who he chooses to use to rebuild and restore and to grow and to flourish. Something you said earlier that stuck out to me, that's just the closeness of those that we may not even realize are being affected by the criminal justice system in a variety of forms. Maybe it's not just the local prison, but it's touching a lot of us in ways we may not be aware of. Mm-hmm. And just to let that shift our perspective of who these people are. They are created in the image of God. They are our neighbors. They are they are in our orbit already.
That's right.
And you, Dawn, in the ministry that y'all are doing, you're just stepping closer. And I think that's a beautiful demonstration of how the gospel just breaks down those barriers. Just step closer, just step into it. These aren't theoretical people out there. They're people in our community. They're our neighbors.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I mean, his word says the light shines in the darkness and the darkness has not overcome it. John 1:5. And I know that I've been called to shine his light in the dark places, one of which is Chester County Prison.
It's awesome. City on a hill.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Thank you for being here and educating us. I feel like I learned a lot, Sarah.
I really did. And everyone knows now that we've been friends for 9 years. And I knew you did this work, but I don't think I fully understood. It's not something you walk around shouting and jumping up and down. And it's just something that you do as part of who you are. And it's just been a real joy getting to learn a little bit more about what my friend Dawn is doing over there.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to share.
Oh, we're so grateful to have you here. Well, listeners, thank you for joining us for this conversation. We hope that your hearts were encouraged and maybe challenged to take a next step. We'll have links to these things we mentioned in our show notes. Dawn, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Until next time, I'm Sarah.
And I'm Mary Beth.
And I'm Dawn.
And this is Trustworthy.
Hey, y'all. Mary Beth here. Sarah and I are so glad that you chose to listen to our podcast. And while we think that we're awesome friends to have, we just wanted to clarify that we are not mental health professionals and want you to know that this podcast should not take the place of any paid professional advice.
There's one important thing that we need to put in here, Mary Beth.
What's that?
It is time for us to put our friend Dawn on the spot.
Bum, bum, bum. Brace yourself, Dawn.
Yeah, I didn't know this was going to be part of the agenda, but
yeah, neither did we. Oh.
All right. We've got some rapid fire random questions for you.
Ready.
Here's my first one, which I'm stealing from my husband because he asked me this past weekend. What is your favorite thing to do with your kids?
Ooh. I got two answers that are competing. One is board games. We're a board game family. Love a good game of cards, some Catan, Ticket to Ride.
Oh, y'all are,
Like,
that's
we're board gamers.
intense board games.
Yeah. The other would be to be at the beach, whether we're playing bocce ball, they're in the ocean and I'm watching because I'm not so much wanting to get in and get destroyed by waves as they are, but spending a day at the beach.
Nice.
It's a good answer. Yeah.
And long car rides. I probably should have third place. Now
Oh.
that I have kids going off to college, there are 13-hour road trips and packing up and moving in to dorms and into apartments and out of apartments. That one-on-one quality time with long conversations and car rides, priceless for this age and stage.
That was one of my answers, and my children are only 7 and 9 years old.
Oh,
I
there you go.
love the car conversations. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Sarah, you got another one?
I do. Okay, Dawn. This is an oldie but a goodie. We've asked this in the past. I know your kids are older now. As you mentioned, you're getting ready to have 2 out and 1 still at home.
Mm-hmm.
But when they were little and even now, after your kids are either A, at college, or B, off to bed, what is your one guilty pleasure that you like to indulge in after your kids are in bed?
So I would say, I don't know if I would call it a guilty pleasure, but it's Survivor 50 season, if you're aware. And my husband and I have watched probably almost every season, but maybe 7, because there was a real season of we couldn't watch TV for a couple of years, but because life was too busy. But you will find me watching Survivor every Wednesday night. We've brought the kids in on it. Some of them right now, my 20-year-old is like, I can't wait to watch Survivor this week. We binge watched past seasons with them in COVID when we were home all day. We would watch seasons at a time. They built a fort across the street in their survival hut. So I would say watching a program was what I looked forward to on Wednesdays, getting my kids to bed so that we could just sit there and watch, just the 2 of us.
That's a great answer. I love that answer. Awesome. Well, thank you for being such a good sport about this.
No, it was easy.
We weren't too hard on you.
No.
I don't think so. Okay. Well, thank you. Talk to you later, everybody.